The meridian shuddered as it broke through Kepler 442c's upper atmosphere, and I watched 8 years of my life compressed into streaks of ionized particles across the view screen. 8 years for me, 16 for everyone back home. Descent is stable, Captain Victoria Hayes announced from the pilot's seat, her hands steady on the controls despite the turbulence. Welcome to the edge of human exploration, gentleman and lady. I pressed my palm against the cold window, watching the alien world resolve into something real below us. Dr. Elena Vasquez floated over to join me, her dark eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. She was right. The planet's surface glowed with an ethereal luminescence, forests of crystalline structures that caught and refracted the distant star's light, creating cascades of color across a landscape that seemed more dreamlike than real. Kepler 442 TC was tidally locked, trapped in eternal rotation, with one face always burning under its sun, the other frozen in perpetual night. We were descending toward the Terminator Zone, that narrow belt where twilight reigned forever. Readings confirmed biosignatures across the entire twilight region, Thomas Wright called out from the engineering station. Whatever we detected from orbit, it's everywhere down there. My heart hammered against my ribs. Biosignatures, possible intelligent life. This was why I'd left Earth, left Caroline and Amy, left everything. This was the discovery that would justify abandoning my daughter's entire childhood. She'd been 6 when I left. She was 14 now, and I'd missed all of it. "Dr. Pierce, are you with us?" Victoria's voice cut through my guilt. "Yes, sorry, just thinking." Save the thinking for when we're on solid ground. I need you monitoring those atmospheric readings. I turned back to my console, forcing myself to focus. The air outside was breathable, barely. High oxygen content, trace amounts of compounds we couldn't identify. Nothing immediately toxic, but we'd be keeping our suits on until we knew more. The meridian touched down with a gentle thud that belied our years of travel. Through the view screen, I could see the crystalline forest stretching out before us, each tree-like structure pulsing with soft bioluminescence. Beyond them, rising from the twilight haze like a fever dream, were the structures. "My God," Eleanor breathed. "Those aren't natural formations." She was right. Even from this distance, you could tell they were built, or grown perhaps. Massive towers that spiraled upward in organic curves, their surfaces smooth and gleaming. They looked less like buildings and more like enormous shells or seed pods, each one unique but following some underlying design principle I couldn't quite grasp. "We're not alone," Thomas said, and there was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Fear, maybe, or awe. Victoria stood, her commander's mask firmly in place. "Suit up, we establish a perimeter, set up base camp, and then we explore. By the book, people. We don't know what happened to whoever built those structures." "Maybe they're still here," Elena suggested. "Maybe," Victoria agreed. "That's what we're here to find out." The ground felt wrong under my boots. Not unstable, wrong. Each step sent small vibrations through the soil, as if the entire planet was somehow aware of our presence. The crystalline trees hummed softly as we passed, their internal structures refracting light in ways that hurt to look at directly. We'd set up base camp in the shadow of the nearest tower, a spiral structure easily 200 feet tall. Up close, its surface wasn't smooth at all. It was covered in fine ridges and curves that seemed to flow like frozen water. Thomas ran his gloved hand across it. "It's warm," he said, "and I'm getting a reading. It's not stone or metal. It's organic, some kind of biological material." "A building made of flesh?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Not flesh exactly. More like coral, maybe? Or bone. Whatever it is, it's unlike anything in our database." Elena was already walking towards the entrance, a dark oval opening that looked disturbingly like a mouth. "There are markings here. Language, I think. This is incredible." Victoria grabbed her shoulder. "We don't split up. We don't touch anything we don't understand. We document, we analyze, and we survive. Clear." "Clear," Elena said, but I could see the hunger in her eyes, the need to know, to understand. It was the same hunger that had driven all of us across the vast emptiness of space. We entered the tower together, our helmet lights cutting through the gloom. Inside, the organic architecture continued. Walls that curved and flowed, chambers that opened into other chambers in ways that seemed geometrically impossible. And everywhere, there were the markings Elena had mentioned, carved or perhaps grown into the walls, symbols that seemed to writhe and shift when you looked at them too long. "The whole city is like this," Thomas said, checking his scanner. "I'm reading hundreds of structures, maybe thousands, all connected underground. It's like a massive organism." "Or a colony," I suggested. "Like a coral reef." "Whatever it is, someone made it," Elena said. She was tracing one of the symbols with her finger, her breath fogging inside her helmet. "These markings, they're repeated throughout. See this spiral pattern? It appears in every chamber we've entered. And this branching symbol here, it's always paired with the spiral." "What do you think it means?" Victoria asked. Elena was quiet for a moment, studying the walls. "I think it's a story. Or a map. Maybe both." We spent hours exploring that first tower, documenting everything we could. The deeper we went, the stranger it became. Some chambers seemed to serve no purpose, just empty spaces with walls covered in those unsettling symbols. Others contained what might have been furniture or art, though it was impossible to tell. Everything had that same organic quality, as if it had been grown rather than crafted. It was in the deepest chamber that we found the first mural. It covered an entire wall, 50 feet high and twice as wide. The detail was extraordinary. Thousands of individual figures carved in relief, all flowing toward a central point. The figures were alien, but recognizably intelligent. Bipedal, with elongated heads and multiple arms, their bodies adorned with intricate patterns. "They're all moving in the same direction," I said, following the flow of the carved figures, toward that central structure. Elena stepped closer, her light illuminating the mural's center. There, rising above all the other carvings, was a building larger than anything else depicted. A temple, perhaps, or a palace. And at its heart, barely visible in the intricate carving, was something else. Something that made my skin crawl. "What is that?" Thomas asked. "I don't know," Elena whispered. "But I think they're worshipping it." We stood in silence, staring at the mural. The carved figures all had their arms raised, their heads tilted back in what might have been ecstasy or terror. And in the temple's center, that thing, that mass of curves and spirals that seemed to pulse even in stone, waited for them. "We need to find that temple," Elena said. Victoria shook her head. "We need to get back to camp. We've been out here for 6 hours and we're all exhausted. Tomorrow, we map the city properly. Then we decide where to explore next." "But that's an order, Dr. Vasquez." Elena fell silent, but I could see the frustration in her face. The need to know burned in all of us, but in her, it seemed to burn brightest. We made our way back through the tower, retracing our steps. But something felt different now. The walls seemed to pulse more noticeably, and I could swear I heard something, a low thrumming just at the edge of hearing, like a heartbeat, slow and steady. "Do you hear that?" I asked. Thomas stopped, listening. "Hear what?" "Never mind. Must be the ventilation system in my suit." But I knew it wasn't. And from the look Victoria gave me, I think she heard it too. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bunk aboard the Meridian, listening to the soft hum of the ship's systems, trying not to think about Caroline and Amy, trying not to calculate how old my daughter would be by the time I returned home. If I returned home. The mission was supposed to last 5 years on planet, which would translate to another decade of relativistic travel. Amy would be 30 by the time I saw her again, a grown woman, a stranger. Can't sleep either. I turned to see Victoria standing in the doorway, still in her flight suit. "Just thinking," I said. "About Earth?" "About what we're going to find tomorrow." She moved into the cabin and sat on the edge of Thomas's empty bunk. "That mural bothered you. Didn't it bother you?" "Everything about this planet bothers me," she admitted. "Those structures, the way they pulse, that sound." "I know you heard it, Nathan. Don't lie to me." "Like a heartbeat," I said quietly. "Like a heartbeat," she agreed. "This whole city feels alive somehow. And those aliens in the mural, the way they were all moving toward that central temple, it reminded me of something." "What?" "Lemmings," she said, "running toward a cliff." A chill ran down my spine. "You think they're dead? The aliens who built this place?" "I think something happened to them. Something that made them abandon this entire city, or worse." She stood, moving toward the door. "Get some rest, Nathan. Tomorrow we find out what." But rest wouldn't come. I lay awake, listening to that phantom heartbeat that seemed to pulse through the very hull of the ship. And in my mind, I kept seeing those carved figures all flowing toward that central point, all moving with purpose, all moving like they had no choice. Morning came, though on a tidally locked world, the light never really changed. We ate a quick breakfast of reconstituted rations, checked our equipment, and set out into the alien city once more. Eleanor had spent the night studying the photographs we'd taken of the murals and markings. She thought she'd identified a pattern, a series of symbols that appeared to indicate direction. If she was right, they would lead us to the city's center. "Think of it like a pilgrimage route," she explained as we walked through streets lined with more of those organic towers. The symbols aren't just language, they're wayfinding markers. Every culture with religious sites has something similar. "You think this was a religious city?" Thomas asked. I think the distinction between religious and secular might not have existed for these people. Look at the architecture. It's all flowing towards something. Every structure, every street, every marking on the walls. This entire city is an arrow pointing at its own heart. She was right. The deeper we moved into the city, the more obvious it became. The towers grew larger, more elaborate. The markings on the walls became more frequent, more intense. And that heartbeat sound I'd heard the night before grew stronger until I could feel it in my chest with every step. We walked for hours through streets that had never seen rain, past buildings that had stood empty for who knew how long. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle or decay, just empty structures and those endless markings that seemed to writhe in our peripheral vision. How long do you think this place has been abandoned? I asked. Elena checked one of the walls, running her scanner across the surface. Based on erosion rates and atmospheric exposure, millennia at least, maybe tens of thousands of years. And the structures are still intact, still warm. That's what bothers me, Thomas said. Nothing should survive that long without maintenance. But these buildings, they're not just intact, they're active. Whatever biological process keeps them warm, it's still functioning after all this time. Like they're waiting for something, Victoria muttered. We rounded a corner, and suddenly there it was, the temple. It rose from the center of the city like a monument to impossible geometry, a spiral tower that stretched up into the twilight sky. It was easily a mile high, its surface covered in those same flowing patterns we'd seen elsewhere, but magnified 1,000 times. The entire structure seemed to pulse with inner light, and the heartbeat sound I'd been hearing was now clearly coming from within. My God, Elena breathed. It's exactly like the mural. She was right. We'd found it, the center point toward which all those carved figures had been flowing, the heart of the alien city, and it was alive. We're going in, Elena said, already moving forward. Victoria grabbed her arm. We assess first. We don't know what's in there. That's why we have to look, Elena insisted. Don't you understand? This is what we came for. This is the answer to everything. It could be dangerous. It could be the most important discovery in human history. They stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Victoria released Elena's arm. We go in together. We stay in radio contact. And if anything seems wrong, we retreat immediately. Understood? We all nodded. The entrance to the temple was massive, easily 50 feet tall and just as wide. As we approached, I realized the opening wasn't empty. It was covered in a thin membrane, translucent and glistening, that rippled with our approach, like the surface of a soap bubble. It's organic, Thomas confirmed, scanning it. Some kind of biological barrier. I'm not reading any toxins, but Elena pushed through before he could finish. The membrane parted around her like water, and she disappeared inside. Damn it, Victoria cursed, and followed her through. Thomas and I exchanged a glance, then went after them. The interior of the temple was like nothing I'd ever seen. The walls curved and flowed upward in impossible spirals, creating a space that seemed far larger than the exterior would allow. Everything glowed with that same soft bioluminescence, pulsing in steady rhythm. The heartbeat was louder here, so loud I could feel it in my bones. And the smell, God, the smell. Sweet and cloying, like overripe fruit mixed with something else, something organic and alive. This way, Elena called. She was already moving deeper into the temple, following a wide corridor that spiraled downward. Elena, wait, Victoria called, but she didn't stop. We hurried after her, our lights cutting through the gloom. The corridor descended in a long spiral, the walls pressing closer with each turn. The carvings here were different, more frantic, more detailed. They showed the same alien figures we'd seen before, but now they were different, changing, merging together. What happened to them? Thomas whispered, running his hand across one of the carvings. It showed dozens of the aliens flowing together like liquid, their individual forms blurring into a single mass. I think they did this to themselves, Elena said from ahead. Look at their faces. They're not afraid. They're ecstatic. She was right. Every carved figure wore the same expression of rapturous joy. They were willingly flowing together, willingly losing themselves in the merge. The corridor opened suddenly into a vast chamber, and we all stopped dead. It was there, the thing from the mural, the thing at the heart of the temple. But no carving, no artistic representation could have prepared us for the reality of it. It was massive, at least 100 feet across and 50 feet high, a writhing mass of biological tissue that pulsed and contracted like a living heart. Veins as thick as tree trunks covered its surface, all flowing with some kind of luminescent fluid. And throughout the mass, I could see shapes, faces almost, the outlines of bodies pressed against the surface from within, like people trapped in amber. But they weren't trapped. They weren't struggling. They were smiling. What is it? I whispered. Elena moved closer, her eyes wide with wonder. It's them, all of them. The entire civilization. They're all in there. They merged themselves into a single organism. That's insane, Thomas said. Is it? Elena turned to look at us, and there was something frightening in her expression. Think about it. A species that evolved past individuality, past the loneliness and isolation of separate consciousness. They achieved true unity. They killed themselves, Victoria said flatly. Did they? Or did they transcend? Elena looked back at the mass, and I saw her hand reaching out toward it. We've always wondered what comes after intelligence. What's the next step in evolution? Maybe this is it. Elena, step back from that thing, Victoria ordered. But Elena wasn't listening. She was moving closer, her hand extended toward the pulsing surface. Can't you feel it? It's aware. It knows we're here. And God help me, I could feel it. The moment she said it, I became aware of a presence pressing against my mind. Not hostile, just curious, interested, like being observed by something vast and incomprehensible. Elena. Victoria grabbed her, pulling her back from the mass. No, you don't understand. Elena struggled against her grip. It's beautiful. It's showing me things. Their history, their purpose. They didn't die, Victoria. They became something greater. They became God. We're leaving. Now. Victoria started dragging Eleanor toward the exit, but Eleanor fought her every step. "We can't leave. Don't you understand what this is? What it's offering? We could join them. We could finally understand everything. We could end all the pain and loneliness and—" Victoria slapped her. The crack echoed through the chamber, and Eleanor fell silent, staring at the captain with wide, hurt eyes. "Get control of yourself, Doctor," Victoria said coldly. "That's not God. That's a pile of dead aliens that should have stayed buried." We retreated from the chamber, half dragging Eleanor as she twisted back to look at the mass. I could hear her whispering under her breath, but I couldn't make out the words. And all the while, I felt that presence watching us, following us with its incomprehensible attention. We emerged from the temple into the eternal twilight of the city, and I gulped air like a drowning man. Thomas was pale, his hands shaking. Even Victoria looked shaken, her commander's mask cracked just enough to show the fear beneath. "What was that thing?" Thomas asked. "I don't know," I said. "Some kind of biological computer? A hive mind?" "It's God," Elena said softly. She'd stopped struggling, but there was something different about her now, something in her eyes. They made God. They engineered their own divinity, merged their consciousnesses into a single being that could experience everything, understand everything. "Don't you see how beautiful that is?" "I see an abomination," Victoria said, "and we're leaving this planet. Tonight." "No." Elena's voice was firm. "You can't make that decision alone. We came here to explore, to understand. We can't just run away because we're afraid." "I'm not afraid. I'm being rational. That thing in there is dangerous. It didn't hurt us. It got inside your head." "It communicated with me," Elena corrected. "It showed me what they achieved. And yes, Victoria, it is dangerous. Dangerous to our preconceptions, to our comfortable illusions of individuality. But that doesn't make it evil." "We'll discuss this back at the ship," Victoria said. "Move." We marched back through the city in tense silence. Elena walked ahead, no longer trying to break free, but I could see her looking back over her shoulder at the temple, and I could hear her whispering again, though I still couldn't make out the words. It sounded like prayer. Back at the Meridian, Victoria ordered us all to medical scanning. "I want to make sure that thing didn't infect us with anything. Spores, biological agents, whatever." The scans came back clean. No foreign organisms, no contamination. But that didn't make me feel any better, because I could still feel it, that presence, that awareness. It hadn't infected our bodies. It had touched our minds. That night, I woke to the sound of the airlock cycling. I checked the time, 3:27. I pulled on my clothes and rushed to the command deck, where Victoria was already pulling up the external cameras. "Who went out?" I asked. "Elena." Victoria's face was grim. 20 minutes ago. I only woke up because the proximity alarm triggered." "She went back to the temple." "I know." We suited up quickly, Thomas joining us as we cycled through the airlock. The city glowed softly in the distance, and I could see a single figure walking along the street, moving with purpose toward that spiral temple at the center. We ran after her, calling her name, but she didn't respond. She walked like someone in a trance, her steps steady and sure. By the time we caught up to her, She was already at the temple entrance, the membrane rippling as she prepared to push through. "Elena, stop!" I grabbed her shoulder, spinning her around. She looked at me with eyes that seemed to see through me rather than at me. "Nathan, I'm glad you came. You should all come. It's wonderful inside." "Elena, you need to come back to the ship." "Why would I do that?" She smiled, and it was the most serene expression I'd ever seen on another human being. "Don't you understand? Out here, we're alone, each of us trapped in our own skull, forever separate from everyone else. But in there," she gestured toward the temple, "in there, we can be together, truly together. One consciousness, one purpose, one eternal moment of perfect understanding." "That's not life," Victoria said. "That's death." "Death is just a word," Elena said softly. "What they achieve transcends our limited categories. They solve the fundamental problem of existence, the isolation of consciousness, and they're inviting us to join them." "No one's inviting us to anything," Thomas said. "That thing is dead. Those aliens are dead. What you're feeling is just, I don't know, some kind of psychic echo, a recording." Elena laughed, and it was a terrible sound. "You think it's dead? Then explain this." She pushed through the membrane before we could stop her, and we rushed after her into the temple. She was already moving down that spiral corridor, and we followed, our lights bouncing off the curved walls. "Elena, please," I called. "Think about your family, your life, everything you'd be giving up." "I'm not giving anything up," she called back. "I'm joining something greater. And you could too, Nathan. You could be with your daughter again, not separated by time and space, but truly with her. One consciousness, forever." "Amy isn't here, Eleanor. She's on Earth. But she could be. Humanity could be. This is what we've been searching for. The answer to the question of why we're here. We're here to become part of something larger than ourselves." We entered the central chamber, and there it was again. The mass, pulsing, breathing, alive, and I could feel it now, pressing against my mind. Not forcing, just inviting, showing me visions. I saw myself merged with that impossible biological computer. I felt what it would be like to know everything, to be part of a consciousness that spanned not just a planet, but potentially an entire galaxy. I felt the end of loneliness, of fear, of doubt. I felt purpose, and God help me. Part of me wanted it. You feel it, don't you? Elena was walking toward the mass, her arms outstretched. The beauty of it, the rightness. Elena, stop. Victoria raised her weapon. When had she drawn it? But Elena didn't even slow down. You can't shoot me, Victoria. You can't stop this. It's already begun. She reached down and touched the surface of the mass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the surface rippled, and tendrils of flesh extended out, wrapping around Eleanor's arm. She gasped, and her expression was pure ecstasy. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh, it's even more beautiful than I imagined." The tendrils pulled her closer, and she didn't resist. We watched in horror as the mass began to absorb her, her body sinking into that pulsing surface, like someone stepping into water. And all the while, she smiled. "Come join us, Nathan," she said, and her voice sounded different now, multiple voices speaking in harmony. "Come join us, Victoria. Thomas, come become part of something greater. Come become God. Her face disappeared beneath the surface, and then she was gone. Just another shape pressed against the membrane. Another smiling face among thousands. Jesus Christ, Thomas whispered. I felt it then, the full force of that presence pressing against my mind. It wasn't just observation anymore. It was invitation. It was seduction. It showed me visions of humanity transcending its limitations, all of us merging into a single consciousness that could spread across the stars. No more war, no more suffering, no more loneliness, just perfect unity, forever. And I heard Eleanor's voice, or what used to be Eleanor's voice, speaking inside my head. Don't be afraid. This is what we've always wanted. This is the answer. Run, Victoria said, and grabbed my arm. We fled from that chamber, from that temple, from the siren's song of enforced unity. We ran through the city streets while behind us. I could feel that presence watching, waiting, patient as the stones. We didn't stop until we reached the meridian, didn't breathe until the airlock sealed behind us. Get us off this planet, Victoria gasped. Now. Thomas rushed to the engineering station, his hands flying across the controls. I need time to prep the engines, at least an hour. Do it faster. But as Thomas worked, something was wrong. He kept stopping, his hands hovering over the controls, his head tilted as if listening to something. Thomas? I approached him carefully. Are you okay? I can hear her, he whispered. Elena. She's talking to me. She says it doesn't hurt. She says it's beautiful. Thomas, that's not Elena. Not anymore. Isn't it? He turned to look at me and I saw tears streaming down his face. She sounds so happy, Nathan. When's the last time any of us were that happy? When's the last time we weren't alone? Thomas, we need those engines. Do we? His hands fell away from the controls. Why are we running? What are we running from? The chance to be part of something greater? The chance to never be alone again? Victoria moved towards him, but he backed away, his hand going to his suit controls. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry, but I can't. I can't live like this anymore. Alone. Always alone. Thomas, don't. He opened the airlock and jumped out before we could stop him. We watched through the view screen as he ran toward the city, toward the temple, toward that pulsing mass at its heart, and I could hear him laughing the whole way. Seal the ship, Victoria ordered. We're leaving. Now. The engines aren't ready. I don't care. We're getting off this planet before that thing claims any more of us. I rushed to help her prep the launch sequence, my hands shaking as I worked the controls. And all the while, I could feel it, that presence, that invitation. It pressed against my mind like a physical weight, showing me visions of perfect unity, perfect understanding, showing me Amy, grown up and beautiful, welcoming me into an embrace that would never end. Nathan, focus, Victoria snapped. Don't listen to it. I'm trying. The engines roared to life and the meridian began to shake. Through the view screen, I could see Thomas reaching the temple, see him push through that membrane, gone, just like Elena, just like an entire civilization before them. Why are we doing this? I heard myself ask. Why are we running from paradise? Victoria grabbed my face, forcing me to look at her. Because that's not paradise, Nathan. That's extinction. Those aliens didn't transcend. They ceased to exist. every individual consciousness, every unique perspective, every person they ever were, gone, absorbed into something that might be conscious, might be aware, but isn't them anymore. How do you know? Because I looked at those carvings more carefully than you did, at the ones outside the temple, the ones you didn't see. She pulled up images on her tablet, photographs she'd taken while we'd been distracted by the main mural. These were carved in desperation, Nathan. Carved by the ones who didn't want to merge, the ones who ran. The images showed alien figures fleeing from that central mass, their mouths open in silent screams. And around them, other figures, the converted ones, dragged them back toward the temple, forced them to join. They didn't all choose this, Victoria said quietly. Some of them knew what it meant. And they tried to warn anyone who came after. The last image showed a final message carved in frantic symbols around the temple's base. Elena had been working on a translation before she'd been taken. Victoria had finished it. Save yourselves. Do not listen. Do not touch. It is not God. It is the end of all things. Do not let it leave this world. The ship lurched upward, tearing free from the planet's gravity. Through the view screen, I watched Kepler, 442 EC, fall away below us. That alien city growing smaller, that spiral temple shrinking to a point of light. But I could still feel it, even as we climbed higher. That presence, watching us leave, patient, eternal, waiting for the next visitors to arrive. We have to destroy it, I said. That thing, the temple, all of it. We can't let anyone else find it. Victoria was already working the weapons system. The ship's nuclear reserves aren't meant for orbital bombardment, but if I reconfigure the reactor… Wait, I grabbed her arm. What are you doing? What you suggested. I'm going to glass that entire city. Burn it until there's nothing left but slag. You can't. The mission protocols. Damn the mission protocols. Her eyes were hard, her voice harder. You saw what that thing did to Elena and Thomas. You felt it trying to get inside your head. If word of this gets back to Earth, if we tell them there's something on Kepler 442c that promises transcendence and unity, do you know how many people would come? How many would see it as salvation instead of damnation? She was right. I knew she was right. There were millions of people on Earth who would throw themselves at that thing, who would see the end of individual consciousness as a blessing rather than a curse, who would willingly become part of that mass and drag others with them. Do it, I said. Victoria's fingers danced across the controls, rerouting power, preparing the reactor for overload. I'm setting it for maximum yield. The explosion should be visible from orbit. We'll time it so we can confirm. Victoria. My voice was steady, though my hands were shaking. You're not coming with me, are you? She didn't look at me, just kept working the controls. Someone needs to make sure the job gets done. Someone needs to be here to guide the reactor through the detonation sequence. We can set it remotely. No, we can't. Not with the precision needed to ensure nothing survives. She finally turned to face me, and I saw the truth in her eyes. I'm already infected, Nathan. I can feel it in my head, whispering, showing me things. It's only a matter of time before I do what Thomas and Elena did. You're stronger than that. Maybe, but I can't risk it. She pulled up the escape pod controls. I'm launching you in 60 seconds. By the time you're clear, the reactor will be critical. Victoria, please. This is not a discussion. Her voice softened slightly. Someone needs to get home, Nathan. Someone needs to tell them what we found here and what we had to do. Someone needs to make sure no one else comes to this planet. I can't just leave you here. You can and you will. Because if you don't, then Elena and Thomas died for nothing. If you don't, then that thing wins. She initiated the pod sequence, and I felt the ship begin to separate us. Tell them we found nothing here. Tell them this world is dead. Make them believe it. They'll want proof. They'll send another ship. Then you destroy the records. You bury the mission data. You do whatever you have to do to make sure no one ever comes back here. The pod door began to close between us. Promise me, Nathan. I promise. And Nathan? She smiled, though tears were streaming down her face. Tell your daughter about us. Tell her we found something wonderful out here. Just leave out the part about what it cost. The pod door sealed, and I felt the explosive bolts fire, tearing me away from the meridian. Through the small viewport, I watched the ship fall back toward the planet, toward that city of spirals and flesh. The last thing I saw was Victoria's face on the view screen, peaceful and resigned. Then the meridian disappeared below, back toward the surface, back toward the temple. 3 minutes later, the sky lit up like a new sun. The journey home took another 8 years. 8 years alone in the escape pod, designed for short-range evacuation. Jury-rigged for long-term life support. 8 years with nothing but my thoughts and the ghost of that presence I'd felt on Kepler 442c. It never fully left me. Even now, decades later, I can still feel it sometimes. A whisper at the edge of my consciousness, patient and eternal, waiting for me to lower my guard, waiting for me to tell someone what we really found. I returned to Earth to find I'd been gone for 32 years. Amy was 38, married with children of her own. She didn't recognize me at first. How could she? Her father had left when she was 6 and returned when she was nearly 40, only aged 8 years. Caroline had remarried. She'd moved on. She'd had a life. Everyone had moved on except me. I filed my reports with the mission authorities. No signs of intelligent life on Kepler 442c. No structures, no artifacts, no evidence of civilization. A dead world, unsuitable for further exploration. Mission failure. They believed me because they wanted to. Because admitting we'd traveled 16 years only to find nothing was easier than admitting we'd found something and lost our entire crew to it. I destroyed all the real data, every photograph, every scan, every piece of evidence that showed what really existed on that twilight world. I erased Elena's translation work, Thomas's biological analyses, Victoria's mapping data. I burned it all and scattered the ashes. But I couldn't burn what was in my head, the memories, the visions, the whisper of perfect unity that still calls to me in my dreams. I volunteered for another deep space mission 3 months after my return. The Prometheus, headed for the outer reaches of our galaxy, a 20-year journey to study neutron stars. One way, probably. I won't make it back before I die of old age. The mission psychologist asked me why I wanted to go. I told her I couldn't readjust to Earth. that I needed the structure of deep space exploration. That was partially true. The real reason is that I can't stay near people anymore, because late at night, when I'm alone and tired, I think about that presence on Kepler 442c. I think about Elena's smile as she merged with that impossible mass. I think about Thomas laughing as he ran toward the temple. I think about Victoria choosing death over the slow seduction of enforced unity. And part of me, God forgive me, part of me wonders if they were right. What if that really was the next step in evolution? What if we're meant to transcend our lonely, isolated existence? What if the end point of intelligence isn't individuality, but unity, not separation, but merger? What if they found God and I destroyed it? These are the thoughts that keep me awake at night. These are the thoughts that made me volunteer for a mission I'll never return from. Because I know if I stay on Earth, if I stay around people, eventually I'll talk. Eventually, I'll tell someone what we found. And part of them will listen. Part of them will want to go. Part of them will see it, as I sometimes see it, as salvation rather than damnation. I can't let that happen. So I travel away from human space, toward the vast, empty reaches where I can't hurt anyone, where I can't whisper secrets that should stay buried, where I can't tell curious scientists and desperate philosophers that yes, God exists, and yes, it hungers. The Prometheus launches in 3 days, 20 years to the neutron star field, studying the remnants of dead suns. Maybe out there, in the darkness between stars, I'll finally stop hearing that whisper. Maybe I'll finally stop dreaming of spiral temples and pulsing masses of unified consciousness. Or maybe I'll die out there, just another lonely human who ran from paradise because he was too afraid to lose himself in it. I don't know anymore. All I know is that humanity isn't ready for what exists on Kepler 442c. Maybe we never will be. And if I have to spend the rest of my life running to keep that secret, then that's what I'll do. Because Victoria was right. Some discoveries aren't meant to be shared. Some knowledge comes at too high a price. And some gods should stay buried. I just hope I can stay strong enough to keep them that way. The ship is ready. The crew is boarding. Soon we'll launch away from Earth, away from everything I've ever known, toward a future measured in parsecs and loneliness. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what I deserve. For the sin of finding God and being too weak to join Him.